Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And my name is Dr. Nina Ahmed, and I am the City Council member at large in Philadelphia. That means I represent all of 1.6 million people. In that 1.6 million people, we have 8% who are AAPI. So they're a critical community in our city. And it's very important that our Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian community is fully integrated in everything we do in Philadelphia because it impacts them. This country, the United States, to which I'm an immigrant, a naturalized citizen, is a country of laws, meaning that's how we operate, that's how policy is made. Everything you feel in everyday life has been decided through a series of laws. So if you're going to say in Philadelphia, you're going to park in a certain way, in a certain space, that was determined by a law where you could have parking spaces. If you have to go to school and your school doesn't have a good bathrooms, it's got asbestos, that is because we didn't make investment, which the laws didn't allow us to make your school better, right? So the point I'm making is every vote counts in an election to elect people who make laws. So your legislators, your senators, your congressmen, women, and your legislators like me, local, make the laws, and the president or the mayor, these are the executive branch, they sign off on the law to say, yes, we all agree this will be the law of the land. There's another body that is not elected, which is the Supreme Court, and that is appointed by the president and confirmed means, ratified by the senators, the Senate in the United States. That body, which is not elected, has no term limit, can sit and decide this law is not good, and they can overturn that law. So it's very important you understand who you elect as president, who you elect as your state representatives, congressional representatives, senators, and congress members, all matter in your everyday life. And let's talk about a specific concern we have about women's rights, about what we do with our bodies. We used to have a law that said what you and your physician decided was the right outcome for you was nobody else's business but yours. That law has been overturned. The Roe v. Wade law has been overturned. It was law for almost 50 years, and the Supreme Court that was put in place by the president who came in 2016, and that was a promise they made. They would overturn Roe v. Wade, and they kept that promise, which means today people are literally dying. So we've had cases where when women have something called an ectopic pregnancy that is dangerous to you, it is outside your uterus. If you don't have that removed, you will die. Now there are some states that have made that procedure illegal, so they can't save these women because the doctor and the people, the nurses and everybody else will be sent to prison if they take care of that woman. That is why you need to vote, because people did not vote in enough numbers in Pennsylvania that would have stopped that type of a candidate. We are here today. This is why this election is so important. I was speaking about the implication of voting, how every vote counts. There have been elections, local, state, and federal, where very small margin has decided the race. So it's very important you vote. And as an immigrant who's a naturalized citizen in this country, I'm paying particular attention because there are already policies that have been suggested by one candidate which are very different from another candidate. And that is about naturalized citizens. There is a department that has been set up in the Department of Justice called the Denaturalization Department. And that is going to be reviewing all of the applications that when we filled out to become citizens, they're going to go through it line by line, and if they have any small error in that, Or if they decided that we don't like this, they're going to remove people. There already is a promise that there's going to be a mass deportation. And when you have mass kinds of efforts like this, everybody gets dragged into it because nobody's going one person by the other. There's a whole bunch of people who thought that they did everything right and their citizenship was permanent, and now that's in question. Think about that. I have children here. They're going to lose their parents. And the second piece that is happening, and that has already been described by certain platforms, that they're going to look at the validity of children who came here. If they don't have two naturalized parents, they could be removed too. I mean, sorry, not naturalized parents. If they don't have two native-born parents, they can be removed too. So there's a severe implication. 1 in 10 people in this United States have immigrant roots. Not long time ago, recent. They are the immigrants. So you're talking about a large population of people. I want everybody in Philadelphia and young people to know, even if you were born here and you were born of 2 immigrant parents, you could be removed. This is the only home you know. You could be gone. So if you are not careful and you're not studying to know what are the candidates that are going to be on the ballot and what do they stand for. In Philadelphia, we have a housing shortage. You know, rents are too high and we just don't have enough housing. One of the platforms in this election has said they're going to make 3 million housing across the United States. We need about 70,000 here in Philadelphia. Think about that. That is going to transform our lives in Philadelphia. We have issues of homelessness, unhoused people. That's going to be addressed. There's going to be resources for health care. You know, women dying at childbirth, we call that maternal mortality. That is an issue that is front and center, and it is very important to me. So I'm looking very carefully who is going to talk about this, who is going to make policy that will change that outcome so all of us can be safe when you're giving birth. Who is going to make sure that student death is taken care of? Right now, this current administration that we have in office has forgiven billions of dollars. This has never been done before. That is because our higher education system is very flawed. And so there's already an effort to address that. We need to remember that whose loans have been forgiven and what will happen if one or the other party comes in to office. Pay attention. If you're looking at buying a house, we talked about housing, right? For a first-time home buyer, there's a $25,000 credit that is going to be offered by one candidate and not by the other. There's also going to be, if you're starting a small business, and this is very important to our AAPI community because many of us are small business owners just like I am. And there's going to be a $50,000 credit. Now it's $5,000. It is going up to $50,000 for you to start a small business, and you can write off the first $50,000. So for maybe the first year, you won't pay any taxes if you only make $50,000 gross. So it becomes critical to look at these policies. What are the policies that are going to impact your life? And then see who are the people saying they're going to do those things that will help you, and that's how you should vote. You should vote for your self-interest. But in order to know that, you have to do some homework. You have to do some homework. This is a digital literacy effort going on here. You know how to use your cell phone. Everybody knows when, some rapper or Beyonce is in town. We all know that. We know how to keep track of that. So if you can do that, you can also get on the websites of these presidential candidates and understand their positions and know who's saying what. So you have a responsibility, whether you're 18 or you're 80. We have a responsibility because remember, the vote for people like us who are not white, AAPI, was earned by people who are African American in this country who died for all of us to have the vote. We have a huge debt of gratitude because the work in the civil rights movement that happened in the 60s changed the laws so I could actually immigrate many, many years later. So this solidarity is really important. So we have to look at all the issues that impact you in your community, in your day-to-day life, and also your neighbor who allowed you, who worked hard, who had dogs set on them, fire hoses set on them, heads bashed in, killed, so that people who are not white have rights in this country. Remember that. Well, however light-skinned you might be, you're not considered to be a white person. And that is a very big issue in these presidential platforms. Who thinks what this country should be like? You know, by 2030, the whole demographics of this country will change, and it will be a non-white majority. If you want to make sure you have rights when that time comes around, today is the day you need to register to vote. Today is the day, if you're already registered, to get your mail-in ballot if you want to vote like that, or make a plan for November 5th to show up at your polling place and vote. Check your registration if you're already a voter. Check your registration, pa.vote.gov. We should check that out. And make sure that you check your registration if you're registered. Get registered online if you're not. Make sure you make a plan for voting on November 5th, whether early by mail-in ballot or on the day off when you go to your polling place. Find your polling place. And you have any questions, you should come back to our host here, who will give you a lot of information around what to do. Remember, in Philadelphia, we have language support for you at the polling places. We passed a law about that. Remember I said it's all about the laws? We have a law that says you have to help a voter if they need language support, because you have a right as a citizen to vote. Why do our communities not feel that their vote matters? They don't go to vote, or they're actually afraid. So a lot of places, especially immigrants, have come from places where they're afraid of their own government, because government watches you. There are places in other parts of the world where you're told how to vote, and you're taken in a bus and you're put in the polling station and you have to vote a certain way. This is why we left those countries. We came here. But if you want this country to continue to have freedom and to have democracy, you have to vote, because that's how we make the laws that make this country have democracy and be safe for you. So that's number one. They're afraid to go to vote. And we have to ask them, are you afraid because you think somebody's watching you? This is America. You are a citizen. You have some rights. Second thing, people think my vote doesn't matter. And that's where close elections comes in. That people can, in some cases, in local elections, you can be off by one vote. Remember, you're voting for the president, you're voting for the senator, you're voting for Congress members, you're voting for state senators, you're voting for state representatives, all of these offices. And if you don't give a House and a Senate to the president, they can't pass the laws, right? So you need to make sure that you give support to whoever is at the top of the ticket, which is the presidential ticket, in order to be able to execute on what they want to do. All the plans they put on their website, that can only happen if they have a House and a Senate that supports that kind of a vision. And you can make that happen, and those races can be settled by one vote, a difference of one vote. And remember, this is an electoral college, which is very confusing, but the way it works is each state is allocated a number of electoral votes. And when you win that state, you get all of those electoral votes. You add up all the electoral votes and you have to reach 270 in order to win. And that's why we have something called battleground states, which means Those are the electoral votes that matter because they're big numbers there, right? So Pennsylvania is one of those battleground states. We have 19 electoral votes. That's a big number. If whoever wins Pennsylvania, they will win the presidency. So you have a bigger responsibility. You can determine the presidency if you are a citizen and you live in Philadelphia or any of the 67 counties. You have a responsibility to carve a path to elect someone who will look after your self-interest, will not deport you, will make sure you have housing, make sure you have a job that pays a living wage, make sure you have an education opportunities, make sure children are taken care of, make sure there's childcare, make sure you can build wealth and you can get housing, you can buy your own house and start your wealth building process, make sure you have a business. All of this matters if you vote. So make sure you understand each one of us is important. Each one of our voices is important. Even if you feel like no one's seen you, you're actually getting counted. And one other thing, when we vote, politicians who get into office look and see who voted from which community. And that's how they pay attention to you. They say, yeah, the Asian community really didn't engage. I'm gonna do things, but I don't know how much attention I'm going to pay to you, because you weren't part of the voting blocks that got me here. So you need to be aware of that. This is just human things that happen. We're all human beings. And if you don't participate, if you don't show interest in this process, you're also not going to get interest back. And that's how our well-being is going to be determined. So the comment on that is I'm still looking at all the work that has been done in terms of all the bills and all the things that we have to vote on. I'm just reading through all of that. But I have made a statement already that I sent out to whoever emailed me or asked me. I said, my job is to make sure that we protect all the interests of every community, right? And to make sure we still have economic growth. We have to do both. Because if you don't have growth, we can't serve you. So we have to see how we safeguard the communities that are feeling they're getting very marginalized. That's why I haven't made a decision. I have to read everything. I have to see what is in place there to make sure we're not disrupting communities. So the message to people who have been, protesting, your voices have been heard. It's not that they haven't been heard. The outcome, we don't know yet because we haven't voted on that. The mayor's decision you have heard. That doesn't mean that we're not going to shape that much more. That doesn't mean, first of all, we don't know it's going to pass. Second of all, if it does, it's going to be shaped. And that's why your voices were not just in the wind. We were hearing them, right? So don't think you protested in vain. This is how work happens. You will protest and something will go one way, and then you will pivot to say, okay, what is my plan B? What is my plan C? All of that comes from your original energy to be concerned about something. That is what is important. That we have noticed I have noticed all of these people protesting and talking about this. This is the time that we are going to review everything, and we are going to actually talk to our community to say, this is what is out there. This is the issues that are on the table, and let's talk about that. The conversation is not ended, is the point. So the issue is that one of the candidates in this race has said they are going to first have a mass deportation of immigrants. And within that, immigrants are citizens and non-citizens, right? You can be permanent residents, you can be undocumented, you could be waiting for something to happen, but you're also naturalized citizens. You followed all the rules and you were sworn in, you did your oath, and you're a citizen. All of these people are at risk, and particularly those who are non-white, because that has been said very clearly. There's something called shithole countries that has been mentioned. We all come from those. Why? Because we are not white people. I make no bones about this. This is not political. These are facts people have put out there. So there's a department that was formed in 2020 in the Justice Department called the Denaturalization Office. They're going to review these naturalized people's applications. They didn't do it because there was a change in administration in 2020, if you remember. So that never materialized, but that's still sitting there. And there's one of the people running for president is connected to a plan that has been put out called Project 2025 that details all of these things. That what are the things that are going to do. So I would be extremely disturbed if we have children of immigrants who are not voting because they can't see their role in it, because you're putting your parents at risk, your grandparents at risk. You have a duty to know what's going on, and your vote counts and your voice counts. How do you think there has been student debt reduction? How do you think that happened? Students protested. How did you think we had civil rights movement? How do you think we got the ability to come here and become citizens? Somebody protested. How do you think we have the vote? Somebody protested and died so that we have the vote. So, and guess what? When we got the vote, those were mostly young people. Martin Luther King was 29 years old. That's not very old, right? So we're talking young people have been driving all our movements in across the globe, not just in this country. Because when you're young, you take some risk, and you can see and you're passionate about things, right? So your voices are very important, your vote is very important, and you can see why your vote is not just important for you, but your entire family. So please, I request you, I beg you, get involved, understand the process. We are room 577 in City Hall, which is at the intersection of Broad and Market. Doors open, you come to meet with us. We meet with people all the time, and I can give you a whole lesson on why I, as a naturalized citizen, have a particular stake, because I have 2 daughters, and not only will I be gone, they're at risk too. They know nothing else but this country. So think about that when you decide you're just going to skip over voting. And we are here to support you to make the right decision and to go ahead and be registered and have a plan to vote. So thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions later on that can come to Inda, and you can send it to me.